Great. Well, welcome everyone. Reminder that I'm going to be spending some time on Q&A after the slides. I'll start with the questions that some of you submitted in advance through the Google form. But if you want to ask any questions, just post them into the Q&A pod, and I'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So very quick outline of what we'll be doing today. First, I'll start with an intro. That will also be very quick, just for those of you who don't know who I am. Then we'll get into the main content, which is today should be about 25 minutes. Then, as I said in the email, I have a special announcement, and then we'll get to Q&A. So very briefly, who I am: my name is R Blank. I'm the CEO of Shield Your Body. I'm also the host of the Healthier Tech podcast. Formerly on the faculty of the University of Southern California Viterbi School of Engineering, and along with my father, Dr. Martin Blank, I co-authored Overpowered on the science of EMF and health. And this all follows a 20-year career in software engineering. So now that you all know who I am, let's get into the meat of the topic. I think we all know what smartwatches are, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over it, but I do think it's helpful to have a working definition as we start this discussion. Smartwatches, in essence, are watches that do more than just be a watch. They are, in essence, they are little computers. And these days, almost all of them use wireless connectivity in order to function. Now, smartwatches have a ton of uses depending on which one you have. But of course, they can tell time. You can get calendar reminders. You can get text messages. You can listen to music. You can even play games. Also, a lot of people are using them for health and fitness tracking, like step counters, heart rate monitors, and sleep monitors. For simplicity, as we go through examples today, I'm often going to be talking about the Apple Watch because that is the single most popular smartwatch, but there are obviously many different types and brands. And many, like this Samsung Galaxy smartwatch you see here, don't even really look like smartwatches, but they are. In fact, a lot of people would look at this photo that I have here up on screen and not realize that it was a smartwatch, but it is. So smartwatches, they are available for sale. Children can go into stores and buy them. So you might think that smartwatches are tested for safety. So are they? No, they aren't. That's not how any of this tech is released. That's not how cordless phones were released. It's not how cell phones were released. It's not how microwave ovens were released, not how Wi-Fi was released. It's always released first, and then we become the lab rats, and the studies follow in the years and decades to come. But other EMF emitting wireless tech has now been around long enough that we have some idea of what we can expect. So as a starting point, let's look at what type of EMF is emitted by smartwatches. The specific answer will depend on your model. In general, it will be some mix of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell data. All smartwatches these days use at least one of these wireless technologies. Again, that's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell data. Or, as in the case of the Apple Watch 5, it will use all three of those forms of wireless communication. So the certain models of the Apple Watch have not only Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but also cell data. So it's like having a little cell phone right there on your wrist. Now, the actual types of EMF emitted by your watch will depend on the specific capabilities of your watch, as well as what features you have enabled at any given point. So all of what I just mentioned, all the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the cell data, these are all essentially the same type of EMF. It's called radio frequency, or RF for short. It's also sometimes referred to as microwave. Radio frequency and microwave are used more or less interchangeably. There's a slight difference and overlap in the actual frequencies used. So Wi-Fi generally uses 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Bluetooth uses 2.45 gigahertz. So you see that's really close to one of the Wi-Fi frequencies. And then in terms of cell data on smartwatches, that's still these days, that's almost always 4G. So that can go anywhere from 600 megahertz up to 2.5 gigahertz. Again, there you are close to that 2.4, 2.5 gigahertz. The main difference between Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell data is the power level. So of the three, Bluetooth has the lowest level of power because it's designed to send signals only over a few feet, right? Bluetooth, Bluetooth devices aren't even really meant to communicate across your whole house, right? They're designed to communicate with something else that's probably on your body or just a few feet away. Then you have Wi-Fi, which is designed to communicate over slightly longer distances than Bluetooth. So that's how Wi-Fi can power your house or your office. It's more than a few feet, but it's less than several miles, right? That's what cell data is. That's why it's the most powerful because it is designed to operate over much longer distances, often up to several miles. So what types of health effects have been linked to exposure to this type of EMF? Well, it's a lot of them, right? So we have anxiety, depression, sleep disruption, infertility, birth defects, miscarriage, brain tumors, colorectal cancer, thyroid cancer, and many, many more. Now, I don't say this to frighten or scare. I say it to give an accurate, though partial, list of the health effects that have been linked to exposure to this type of EMF. Now, I've been doing this type of work now for several years, and I've seen that when people discover the issue of EMF and health, they can be shocked at how many different types of negative health effects have been linked to EMF. And I explained some of why that is in other articles, why EMF impacts so many different systems in our bodies. But so I don't want to get into that detail now. Again, that is available elsewhere, but this is all true. This is all real science. So while smartwatches themselves have not been studied for long-term health effects, this type of EMF has, because cell phones, Wi-Fi, and even Bluetooth have been around long enough to be studied. Now, the industry will tell you correctly that smartwatches adhere to existing radiation exposure regulations. So what are they talking about? They are talking about something called SAR. And to understand why using cell phone SAR regulations for smartwatches is misleading and dangerous, we need to spend a few moments to discuss SAR. SAR stands for specific absorption rate. And SAR measures how much electromagnetic radiation is absorbed by your body. And so devices like cell phones are regulated based on their SAR rating. A cell phone, for example, has to have a published SAR value of under 1.6 watts per kilogram in order to be legally sold. Now, it doesn't really matter if you don't understand what that unit is, don't worry about it. The point is, the government decided there's a limit to how much radiation you can absorb from your cell phone, and cell phone companies have to produce tests that show that their devices come in under that limit. So here we see the SAR rating for the Apple Watch as posted by Apple. And as you can see, they come in well below the safety limits, which is good. So you see there, right at the top value, it has to be under 1.6 watts per kilogram. At the head, it is 0.109, right? That's way under 1.6 watts per kilogram. Now, I'm about to explain why this is misleading. But before we get into that, I did want to note, even Apple says their watch product is not safe against your face, which should tell you something about how Apple views the risks of this product against your body, even though it is designed to be worn on your body. And again, this is a great example of how no one ever reads the fine print. But really, that's just the tip of the iceberg. First, it is true that Apple says it complies with SAR. That is, they're being accurate, as long as you don't hold the device close to your face. But there are many studies demonstrating negative health effects from doses lower than SAR regulations permit. So these include sleep disruption, cellular damage in the brain, DNA strand breaks, blood-brain barrier leakage, cellular metabolism, and more. Again, I'm referencing here, I have the links, I'll be posting them separately, but I'm referencing here specific studies that measured damage from radiation exposure at under the legally permitted levels. Now, in theory, SAR measures how much radiation your body absorbs from a cell phone, except that theory is wrong because SAR doesn't actually measure how much radiation you absorb. SAR actually measures how much radiation a test dummy absorbs in a lab. And that test dummy approximates the body of a man who is 6'2" and weighs 220 pounds. That is bigger than 97% of the world's population. This means that 97% of the world's population will absorb more radiation than SAR tests would show because they're based on a bigger person. Now, there are a lot of other problems with SAR, and I discuss them in more detail on the blog and on YouTube. So I don't want to cover everything that's wrong with SAR. Like I say, I've done that a lot, but there is a specific aspect of SAR that I do want to get into because it is so applicable to smartwatches and in fact, all wearable tech. And that's something called the dose response relationship. See, a good body of EMF science shows that there is a dose response relationship with EMF exposure. Now, that's a long phrase. You might not know what it means. What does it mean? What does dose response mean? It means the greater the dose you have of something, the greater the response will be. A common example is drinking alcohol. The more alcohol that you drink, the more inebriated that you become. That is the dose response relationship in action. And the science clearly shows that EMF also has this dose response relationship because we all know that holding a phone up to your head for 5 minutes one time and holding it up to your head for 2 hours every day for 30 years, they don't bring the same risk to your health. Increased use obviously leads to increased risk. But to the FCC, relying on these SAR standards, using a cell phone for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for 30 years bears the same risk to your health as using it once for a 5-minute call. It's ridiculous, but I don't want to get too focused on cell phones. I talk a lot about SAR elsewhere, particularly as it pertains to cell phones. So I want to bring this back and ask, why does this matter so much when it comes to smartwatches? Why am I focusing so much of this talk on SAR? And that is because of two aspects of how smartwatches are designed to be used. The first is distance. The power of EMF diminishes exponentially with distance. This is why here at SYB, we're always advising people not to carry their phones in their pockets or bra. Because when you carry your phones this way, there is no distance and you are getting a full dose of all the radiation your phone has to offer. Now, it's true that we don't wear our smartwatches near our brains, but it is on your body, directly on your body. That's literally how they are designed to be used, directly on your body. Unlike with phones, there are no safer ways to carry your smartwatch. And so that I said there were two aspects. The first is distance. So it's not only that these devices are designed to be worn directly on your body, it is also that they are designed to be worn directly on your body for extended periods of time, many hours every day. So again, this is different than phones. With smartwatches, these are designed to be used directly on your body for extended periods. Both of these factors, right, distance and duration, they increase the health risk from smartwatches. That's why I was talking about the dose response relationship. And this is why SAR from a smartwatch is not an analogous way to compare the health risks of smartwatches to the health risks of cell phones. In other words, a smartwatch doesn't have to be as powerful a source of EMF as a cell phone in order to do long-term damage because of the way these devices are designed to be used. It is not apples to apples. Remember, there was a time when people thought cigarette smoking wasn't harmful. They even featured doctors in ads like this old Camel cigarettes campaign. And this is also why I've been so vocal this year about the Internet of Things, this drive to turn everything in our daily lives into a smart device, into another source of EMF exposure. And this is very worrisome because remember the dose response relationship. Each additional bit of EMF we're exposed to increases our cumulative exposure. That's why I'm so worried about smartwatches. And I hope you all have a bit better of an understanding of how to approach consideration of the health risks of smartwatches. Now, those of you who know me, who know SYB, know I like to focus on solutions. I like empowering people with knowledge that helps them make smarter choices and decisions in their use of tech. So what are we to do? Well, let's step back a moment and remember what I call the 2 key rules of EMF protection. I say them all the time. They're in blog posts and ebooks and videos. They are minimize use and increase distance. When you minimize use, right, like turning off your Wi-Fi at night. When you minimize your use, you're obviously reducing your dose of EMF. I said turning off your Wi-Fi at night, putting your phone into airplane mode when you're not actively using it. Those are examples of minimizing use. The second is maximizing distance. And when you maximize the distance, this matters a lot because the power of EMF radiation diminishes exponentially with distance. So let's say this is your phone, this is your body, they're about 1 inch apart. If you double that to 2 inches, the power of the EMF that you're exposed to has just dropped by 75%. That's why distance matters so much. So that's why you should never sleep with your phone. It's why you should never carry your phone in your pocket or bra. It's why you should never use your laptop in your lap. That's why distance matters so much. So those are the 2 key rules. But as I just explained, you can't actually increase the distance with smartwatches. They are body mounted. So that leaves us with the first rule, right? So when it comes to smartwatches, in fact, when it comes to any form of wearable tech, we're only left with one rule of EMF protection that we can use, and that is to minimize the use. So the absolute best way to minimize is to just say no. You have lived long enough without smartwatches and you were doing just fine. I feel the same way about almost every new smart device that I see. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them, right? There's so much, when new tech comes on the market, you know, and I used to be, I had a career in software development. I was building apps and games and websites for big companies. And I was heavily into the tech sector. And I know this view that when there's this new device, it's cool. You want to use it because it's new and it's cool and it's a form of tech that you haven't used before. But that's not how we should be thinking about it. If a new piece of smart tech really adds value to your life, then by all means, use it. But at a minimum, really engage in a mindful evaluation. Does the value of a new piece of tech really justify the increased EMF exposure and the health risk? Now, there is a role, in my opinion, for body-worn EMF emitting biometric devices. It can be very useful, even life-saving for some people. I knew someone who, as it turned out, had a cardiac arrhythmia, but it would never turn up in the medical exams at the doctor's office. So he bought a biometric smartwatch, which was able to track and identify the arrhythmia, which helped in his treatment. Now, that's a great example, in my opinion, of when to use a smartwatch. In that example, it really added value. But as I said just before, most consumers don't even think about it. They just want new smart tech. There's a new smart device out, they want it, especially if it comes from Apple. But that's not how consumers should be evaluating this. There is a cost benefit analysis that needs to happen. And when people actually take the time to consider both the benefits and the costs, fewer people will buy this tech. Now, as I just said, for some people, the benefits do justify the costs. And for other people, they just really want this tech. So if you're in either of those groups and you do use a smartwatch, even though I am strongly opposed to them, but if you do use it, how can you use it more safely? Well, use them less. Remember, minimize use. Now, I know it sounds simple, but really there are a lot of ways to do this. I can give you a couple right now. For example, if you're sitting around watching TV you don't need your attention split to your watch anyway. So get into the habit of taking off your watch when you're watching TV. It's a great way to reduce your use and your exposure. Another time when you could do this is eating meals with family and friends. Just take off the watch when you should be paying attention to humans anyway. The third example, super important, take these things off when you go to sleep. There are a lot of people who just get into the habit of keeping the watch on like it's a regular watch, and it's not. It's more like a cell phone. And get into the habit of taking it off when you go to sleep. These are all examples of little habits that you can impose in your own life that get you to use your smartwatch less. The simple act of taking off your watch when you are not using it will make a big difference in your exposure. So get into the habit. Now, there's another thing you can do. And I talk about this all the time with cell phones, and that is to use airplane mode. Because when your device is in airplane mode, the EMF emissions are virtually eliminated. And so I say this all the time about cell phones. My cell phone spends almost all day in airplane mode. You just enable the wireless connection when you actually need to use the wireless. The same thing is true for smartwatches. Make use of airplane mode when possible. A lot of the features like time, like your alarms, like your calendar reminders, some offline apps, they will still work. You don't need to have an active wireless connection for every function on your phone to work. Now, let's go back to that example I said much earlier in the talk, where you have this Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cell data all running. With the Apple Watches and with some of these other smartwatches, you can actually disable individual wireless connections. So let's say you need to use wireless, right? You're listening to my advice, you turn it into airplane mode when you can, but right now you really need the wireless to work for whatever reason. You don't need all your wireless connections on, right? In order for your wireless to work, you just need one of these on. So for instance, you could keep your Wi-Fi on, but turn off Bluetooth and cell data, which means you'll get your desired wireless connectivity, but you will expose yourself to much less EMF. Also, if you choose to use a smartwatch, I recommend that you reduce your exposure from other sources in your house. So in other words, if you're going to expose yourself to more radiation from the smartwatch, try cutting your exposures from somewhere else in your life. Remember, because it's about the cumulative exposure that you have. So you can make it just like if you wanted to eat cake tonight, maybe you only eat salad tomorrow. A blunt example, but to help give you an understanding of why, if you have a bit more EMF here, you just compensate by getting less of it somewhere else. And finally, don't ever give them as gifts. So even though smartwatches don't make it easy to practice the 2 key rules of EMF protection, it is still possible to use them, those rules, in order to reduce your exposure from this wearable tech. So the 2 key rules are what I always tell people are the best solution to protect yourself from EMF. And of course, EMF protection products are another possibility, and I refer to them as the second line of defense. So not using a smartwatch is the best protection. Using it less is good protection. But when you do use it, you can consider using an EMF protection device. And that brings me to the special announcement I have for all of you here today. And so I'd like you all to say hi to Bella. She's my new dog. Well, I'm fostering her. She's a rescue. And as beautiful and adorable and sweet as Bella is, that wasn't really the announcement. That was just a cheap excuse to get a cute doggy into the presentation. So pardon my discretion there. So, okay, here is the real announcement. I would like you all to say hi to the brand new SYB wristband, the first of its kind EMF shielding product for smartwatches. And you are literally the first people in the world to know about it. This is the first time I am telling anyone on the planet about it. It isn't even linked up on our website yet. The SYB wristband is laboratory tested to shield up to 99% of your smartwatch's EMF radiation. This includes 5G. The lab testing goes up to 40 gigahertz. It is one size fits most. It has a circumference of 3.75 inches, and it has some elasticity. I'll explain that in a minute. It is also 2 inches wide, which is large enough for almost any smartwatch, including the Apple Watch. It is made from the same high quality fabric that we use in our SYB neck gaiter. So that is 90% pure silver thread with 10% spandex. It has a unisex design, great for men or women, also children and adults. It is hypoallergenic and non-toxic. It is machine washable. But there is one other note I want to say very clearly. The SYB wristband will prevent biometric functionality from your smartwatch. So I know some people use their smartwatches, for instance, to monitor their heart rate when they're working out or something like that. The smart, because it's a layer in between the watch and your body, your biometric functionality will not work when you are wearing the wristband. But in that case, you can just take off the wristband when you need the biometric functionality and then put it back when you're done. So when I say laboratory tested, I'm talking about over 99% shielding effectiveness, as you can see in the laboratory test data, which we'll be publishing to the website next week. Again, you're the first people to hear about this, so we haven't really posted any of this stuff on the website yet, but we will be next week. And as you can see, we had this tested between 15 megahertz and 40 gigahertz, which is well into the 5G range. And to help celebrate the coming launch of the new SYB wristband, I am offering all of you 50% off with free shipping. So when we actually start selling the wristband in October, it'll be $30. But tonight, I am offering it to you all for just $15 with free shipping. I also want to highlight that any order of products from my website includes a lifetime warranty. It really is the strongest warranty in the industry. No one provides any guarantees like it, and 30-day returns. And in the case now, because you'll be pre-ordering it, it'll be 30 days from when it's shipped, not from when you are ordering it. So if you order by midnight tonight, Pacific time, so that's in about 10 hours, you can save 50% by using this special coupon code here on the screen. It is SMART50. Again, saves 50% and free shipping. And with that, I want to thank all of you so much for taking the time to attend my talk. I hope I've helped illuminate the issue a bit more about EMF and wearables. And now we will get into questions. So I'm going to have to get out of this mode here. There we go. Okay, so Shirley asks, do you know what federal agency would be responsible? Oh, sorry, let me just jump down to here. I see what you guys are seeing, so you want to see that. That has the URL. Oh, right, I forgot to mention, because it's not linked up on my website yet, you have to go directly to this URL. So that's shieldyourbody.com/band, B-A-N-D. That's where you can find the wristband and you can pre-order it. Okay, sorry, Shirley. Do you know what federal agency would be responsible for regulating these devices? We're hearing queries about experiences with them. So in general, this type of regulation comes from the FCC, but they also rely on input and data from the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration. I am not familiar in particular with their interactions about wearable devices. In fact, in my experience, there's a whole bunch of EMF emitting technology that they don't even pretend to try to regulate. So the big thing that these regulators seem to care about is cell phones, and it's good. I mean, I like that they care about cell phones. They should care about cell phones, but we have so many more of these devices everywhere in our lives, and for a lot of them, you can't even find SAR emissions data that's not published. Even cars these days emit huge amounts of EMF. There's all of this, even in just regular cars, your radio will have Bluetooth, but in the fancier cars, there's way more going on. Like, look at a Tesla, and you can't find any of this data. and it's unclear who is regulating them or if they're trying. So it is a very kind of frustrating mess when it comes to regulatory action on any of these types of wearable products. I apologize if that wasn't, if I wish I had a more fulfilling answer to give you on that. But that is where we are at. So to answer your question, it is the FCC. So earlier in the talk, I talked about SAR emissions, and Apple published the SAR on their Apple Watch. Those regulations come from the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. Kathy, yeah, we can talk about it. Let me just get to a couple of the questions that were asked in advance. And if you see me looking to the side here, it's because I have multiple monitors, so I have to look over here to see some of these questions. So someone asked, I have a Fitbit Charge 4 health fitness tracker worn on my wrist. How harmful is it? And is there any way to safely use it? So, and I should say, I have no personal experience with any smartwatches, but as I've been doing this this content for the past month, posting about emailing you guys with information about smartwatches, people have been asking me questions. I've done a little research. So I don't know the Charge 4 model of the Fitbit specifically, but I do know that with the Fitbit, at least with some models, it is possible to turn off the wireless and then turn it on because with the Fitbit, it's not like you're getting calls on it, right? It's not like you're getting text messages on it. The wireless exists only to send the data that it's tracking to other devices. And so you can turn off that wireless and then turn it on only when you want to do the data transfer, or do the data transfer over a cable. Again, that might not be, the cable option might not be possible on every model, but it is on some of them. So that would be my recommendation. Now, the Fitbit uses, again, it would depend on the model, but it uses both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I do not believe there are any Fitbits that actually use cell data. So right away, that's better than an Apple Watch. But I recommend disabling the wireless when you're not, until you actually need to use it to send the data to another device, like your phone or your computer. Laurel asks, what does having airplane mode on actually do when Wi-Fi is on? So that's a good question. That has to do with, I can't pull, yeah, you wouldn't be able to see it on my screen. So, but I said during the talk that you can use airplane mode to selectively enable or disable different wireless connections. And so what that means is, for instance, in the context of a phone or an Apple Watch, is that you can put it into airplane mode, but then also keep the Wi-Fi on. And what that means is the cell data is turned off, probably the Bluetooth is turned off, but the Wi-Fi is on. And so what that does is it enables the device to still communicate wirelessly over Wi-Fi, but you've cut out the excess EMF emissions that would be coming from your cell connection and your Bluetooth connection, which is something I recommend for people both with smartwatches and with phones. Someone asks, okay, this is a good question. It's a long question, and I'm not going to have a great answer for it. Kathy may ask, since she's on the webinar, but I know that 6 vital acupuncture meridians go through the wrist area. And in addition, the source points for 4 of those meridians are right where the watch and band are. As an energy medicine practitioner, we've had cases where someone who always carries their electric car key in the same pocket has presented with continuous pain until regular position changed. I'm suspecting that the subtle integrity of the meridian flows may well be compromised by the noise interference of the intruding transmissions. Okay, so far so good. I am in full agreement. I am not an expert in energy practice, but I do know that the body runs on energy. That's not a, I mean, it can be a metaphysical concept, but it's also literally a biophysical concept. The brain communicates with your body using electromagnetic signals. So literally using energy. Your body is communicating using energy, and very, 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 very low levels of this energy. And so something like a cell phone or a watch is going to be interfering with that type of communication flow. So what are the characteristics of what is being transmitted, received, at what frequency, what power density, timing beacons, etc. So that I partially answered earlier in the talk, which is these devices, they're using the same types of wireless connectivity that your phone is, that is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell data. And I talked about the frequencies that are being used. In terms of power density, I don't have that data. The companies aren't required to publish power density data. All they're required to publish is SAR data, but they're lower than a phone. But again, the proximity and duration really matters. Have we the capacity to measure? Have there been any studies on acupuncture point characteristics such that we can tell whether or not the watch transmissions disturb or interfere with acupuncture points? I can't say definitively, but I have not seen any studies into these watches yet, into basically any of these wearables. There's barely any into Bluetooth headsets, and those have been around longer and are more widely used and are right next to your brain. So this is an understudied area, unfortunately. Again, it's using, though, the same types of radiation that are well studied from decades of cell phones and Wi-Fi and cordless phones. Okay, is there a way to safely use them and incorporate them in our daily lives? Yes, I mean, there's a way to more safely use them and incorporate them into your daily lives. So those were the solutions that I was explaining at the end of the talk. So let's see. So Kathy has volunteered to give an update on the FCC issue. So Kathy, I've promoted you. Do you have the ability to share? Wait, I thought I promoted you. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Great. Hi, everyone. Say hi to Kathy. She's SYB's in-house EMF consultant, who the person you can book if you order consulting through SYB. Kathy is the person that you end up talking to. She also runs whole home and body health and is a certified building biologist and a certified holistic nutritionist. Kathy, is your mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can. Hi, cool. Kathy. Welcome to the webinar.
Yeah, thanks. I tried to start my video, but it won't let me. So yeah, just for anybody that isn't aware of what happened a week ago Friday, the FCC was sued in a long lawsuit by Children's Health Defense, Environmental Health Trust. There were some other people that were involved in this lawsuit as well. And they were arguing that the FCC could not claim that they did not need to update their safety guidelines. So in the past couple of years, the FCC came out and said that their guidelines from the 90s were still perfectly fine, and they did not need, there was no reason to update them. And so the appellants or the people who are suing the FCC stated, you know, we've got these many tens of thousands of research studies showing impact from this pulsed microwave radiation that you have ignored. And the court upheld that point of view. They said, you're right, you can't ignore all of this data that has since come out since the 90s. In addition, you have failed to consider the increased use of multiple devices at the same time. So the majority of the research studies are, like are alluded to, you know, 10 minutes with a cell phone next to a giant head. Well, it's not taking into account the tens of devices we now have in our home, and the fact that we're being exposed 24/7 because all of these devices are on constantly. And so it was a really big deal because the FCC now has to go back and actually take a legitimate look at the published science showing that there is actually some negative impact from their technology. So it's, you know, I don't know how it's going to end up at the end of the day, but this is a very encouraging a very encouraging conclusion, because it's basically saying, actually, we do need to pay attention to the science here.
Yeah, I remember, Kathy, you and I were talking about this legal action last year, and I was not optimistic about the outcome, and the ruling really did surprise me. And basically, I mean, what the FCC did really wrong is they didn't even pretend to care. And that's, I think, what the judge said. Like, if you're going to do this, you have to back it up with something. And you didn't even try to do that. And so the outcome, that doesn't mean anything is going to change. So I don't want people, maybe I'm old and jaded. I don't want everyone leaving this thinking like everything has changed, because now what has to happen is the FCC has to go back, and either they have to update the standards or they have to explain why they didn't. So it's not like the judge is forcing them to update the standards. So we'll see what happens next. But it was a huge ruling. It was a huge ruling. It happened right as the Afghanistan situation was exploding, and so I think it didn't get the kind of coverage that it otherwise would have. But it was a super significant ruling. Thank you, Kathy. Anything else you'd like to share?
Excellent information. I'm really excited to see this new device that you're doing, and I would agree that, you know, if you're going to use this stuff, use it smarter. Just keep it in airplane mode, like you mentioned. And I'm really excited for people to be able to use your new wristband. How
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Cindy asks, what is the FCC case name, please? So actually, Kathy, can you just get, you know what, here, it's,
I'll find it. I'll find it and put a link in there for you.
okay. Also, I'm trying to load up here. There's the press release on the Environmental Health Trust. There's also a link there to the press conference that they did last, I think it was last Monday. So you can get more information from the Environmental Health Trust and the Children's Health Defense people who actually brought this action here. Cindy, I can't type an answer here. Okay, I'm going to put it into the chat pod. So Cindy, this is for you. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, Heidi, not so much a question, but says, I had to stop wearing my Fitbit due to shooting pain on my wrist. Would your band stop the pain so I could start using it again? You know, Heidi, it's possible. So I mean, I can't guarantee that it will stop the pain. I can guarantee that it will significantly cut back on the EMF emissions. But honestly, you know, in your situation, I would recommend trying first what I said in answer to the other question about Fitbit, which is to disable the wireless. Again, I don't know for sure that's possible on every model of Fitbit, but I know it is possible on some of the models of Fitbit. See if that works, because if that works, then the EMF is clearly the source of the pain. And that'll solve your problem. But B, it would also show you that if you did want to use my product, then it would help address the pain issues that you're having. Thank you. Let's see, there's another question here. I've been using airplane mode a lot, and I've been noticing that my emails are not downloaded from the server. Do you have this issue? Is there an easy way? Okay, so when you're in airplane mode, there's no connectivity. So you're not going to be able to download the emails when you're in airplane mode. Now, there is an IT side to that answer, and I'm not going to get into the details, but if you check your email using a POP connection instead of an IMAP connection, then if you're using the POP connection, when you do go online and get the emails, they will actually be downloaded to your device. And then when you go offline, the emails will still be there on your device. If you're using an IMAP connection, then your emails won't be accessible in airplane mode. So there is a solution to that, and you can either Google POP versus IMAP, or talk to a tech whiz in your life, and they should be able to get that sorted for you. Thank you, Cindy. Oh, good. That answered it. Cool. So that was a nice, quick, and efficient webinar. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Reminder: this pre-order sale is tonight only, so you have about 10 hours if you're interested in taking advantage. $15 with free shipping. It really is a great product. I don't have one next to me, but I do have the Neck Gator. I forgot to get it to bring it over before the talk. But it's such a fantastic fabric. It is really, really, really nice. Like I said, 90% silver, 10% spandex. We use the spandex to get that kind of elasticity. That's what helps it be a one size fits most product. But as you see here, we haven't released it yet in the wristband yet. So I'm interested to see how people react to it when we do ship them in October. But it is a gorgeous product. So it really works, and it's gorgeous. And I said machine washable, all sorts of benefits. So again, you have until tonight. Just make sure to use this URL, that is shieldyourbody.com/band, and to use this code, which is SMART50. So with that, oh, and someone asked about a replay. This will be the recording of this talk will be posted to our YouTube channel tomorrow. So that's youtube.com/shieldyourbody. Thank you, everyone, for coming out, and have a nice evening. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you all in September. Bye.